Great. All right, so why don't I ask one of you to give a definition of restorative justice? Just a couple of sentences about your understanding of what restorative justice is. There seems to be already so much knowledge in this audience.
Building a community within, especially as a teacher in a classroom setting, school-wide.
Building a community in a school,
Yes.
Whether in the classroom setting or in the school as a whole.
Both.
Okay, both. Great. Yeah.
It's a chance for a victim and a perpetrator to come together to share their views and to possibly understand each other's viewpoints and come to a different conclusion.
It's a chance for the person causing harm and the person harmed to come together, connect with one another, share their stories, and maybe, what was the last thing you said? Come to a different conclusion about one another. Okay, great, great. Yes?
More healing than punishing.
Restorative justice brings more healing than punishment, absolutely. Yes? Oh, okay, yeah.
Repairing the relationship that has been established because you've already had time together in the classroom or out at the lunches, and so you will continue to be in this community and you need to repair what's been done.
Okay, a way of repairing harm to relationships. Absolutely, yeah.
It's an opportunity for the person who has been harmed and the person who has harmed to hear each other's side of the story and develop empathy for each other so that the relationship can begin to heal.
Yes, absolutely. So I think what everyone has said is really, really important and correct. And let me just take note that we often use the terminology person causing harm and person harmed rather than victim and offender, simply because there's no bright line separating persons causing harm from persons harmed. And we don't identify people by their mistakes or by something that happened one day or one night. And we also know that, like Terry, who may have been perceived as a person causing harm, she in fact had been deeply harmed herself. So there's no bright line between a victim and offender. There, but for the grace of God, I could become a person causing harm. So that's why we don't want to judge people or stereotype people or categorize people into these kind of, put them in these boxes, because we know that reality is much more complex and fluid than that. Great. So many people think of restorative justice solely as a conflict resolution method, right? Restorative justice is done after a person causes harm to another person, right? But in fact, as a number of you indicated, restorative justice is not only that. Yes, it can repair harm that has been caused, but it can also create community, as was said by the first person who responded. Restorative justice, in that sense, is really more a way of life, a way of being present to one another, that promotes respect, that promotes empathy, that promotes self-awareness, that promotes healthy relationships, that promotes trust. And in some ways, you could say that that is the most powerful impact of restorative justice. In our work in Oakland, we probably do 80% community building, trust building, relationship building circles, and only 20% conflict circles. We try to do as many circles as possible proactively and not reactively. Because if we do enough of those proactive circles in the classroom, the students are less likely to engage in unhealthy conflict. They're more likely to learn to talk through instead of fight through their differences. Okay, so that's great. Before I talk about the history of the work in Oakland and how we're doing and what the studies are showing and all of that, Let's go back to what restorative justice is. You could say that our current retributive justice system asks 3 questions. Are you all hearing me?
Yes.
Oh, good, good. The first question is, what law was broken? In the school, it would be what rule was broken? Who broke it? And what punishment is deserved? What law was broken, who broke it, and what punishment was deserved? You can sum up our entire criminal justice system with those 3 questions. We charge people with breaking laws, we adjudicate them, we find them guilty or innocent, and if they're guilty, we figure out what punishment to give them. So you can say that ours is a system that harms people who harm people to show that harming people is wrong. Yeah. Okay? But what does that do? That replicates harm. It reproduces harm until it metastasizes and pervades our very culture. And that punitive, almost, we think it's reflexive. We think it's innate. But I believe that this is what we have been conditioned to do, to respond to one harm with another harm. Restorative justice seeks to flip the script. Grounded in indigenous teachings and values that acknowledge our interrelatedness with one another, and that privilege healing, restorative justice asks instead, who was harmed? What are the needs and responsibilities of those affected by the harm? And how does everyone affected, not just a group of professionals, but how does everyone in the community affected by this harm come together to heal the harm to the degree possible? So again, who was harmed? What are the needs and responsibilities of those harmed? And how do all impacted come together to heal that harm as much as possible? You can also tell a story. A woman is walking down the street, an elderly woman, at least as old as me, maybe even older than me, with her bag hanging from her arm, and with 3 children who appear to be her grandchildren. She may be in her 80s. And then suddenly, a young man charges her, knocks her down, grabs her purse, and runs away. You could say that our system passes the children, steps over the grandma who's on the ground, running after the person who caused the harm. Right? Because that person broke a law, that person must be adjudicated, and that person must be punished. Our justice system, as it currently stands, does not really address the needs of the person on the ground, the person who's been harmed, or the community around that person, the children. You could say that restorative justice would probably do what you do. Your intuitive and instinctive response would be to help the woman who's lying there. What are her needs? Does she need medical care? Do I need to call 911? Do I need to give her first aid? You finish meeting her needs, and then you look at the kids, they are just devastated. They are distraught. They are traumatized. How can we address their needs? How can we comfort them and give them solace? And then this young man, what's his story? What's happening in his life that caused him to do what he did? And how does he make amends? How does he hold himself accountable? How does the community hold him accountable? And it may be that the community needs to hold ourselves accountable if we are not doing something to nurture that young man. So that sort of gives you an overview of restorative justice theoretically. I now want to talk a little bit about the work that we did in RJOY. We started in the schools, even though our mission was tripled to promote restorative justice principles and practices in schools, juvenile justice system, and community. It seemed that the funding came more easily for the work in the schools. We got funding from the City of Oakland's Violence Prevention Program. And we started the first urban restorative justice pilot in the state of California in 2007 in West Oakland at a school called Cole Middle School. That program was successful in eliminating violence. There were no longer fights. Students learned how to talk through instead of fight their differences. Reminds me of a young man who went to school at Cole, and one day was 2 or 3 blocks away from the school, and he and another friend started fighting one another. A parent who knew about our program accosted them and hauled them to the school and into the restorative justice room. How many of you have restorative justice rooms at your school, by the way? Peacemaking circle rooms. Oh, just a few. Okay. Well, we'll talk about that later, but the parent brings the kids into the restorative justice room and goes to the restorative justice coordinator, and she tells her, what was going on. And so one of the boys complained, "We can't fight at school, and now we can't even fight in the neighborhood." That's right. So the violence stopped. Also, suspension rates fell by 87%. Instead of kicking kids out of school, we were doing circles with them and using that as an alternative to suspensions and in some cases expulsions. And that's huge because you all know, I know, about the school to prison pipeline, right? And I don't know if you know about the studies out of the UCLA Civil Rights Center, which show that if by the 9th grade you have been suspended once, your likelihood of being incarcerated triples. That's the school to prison pipeline. Your likelihood of dropping out doubles because you're losing instructional time. You come back and you feel bad, you feel ashamed, and you get behind and you act out and you get suspended again. So interrupting the school to prison pipeline is something that we have been successful at doing through implementation of restorative justice at that school. In addition, we were able to completely eliminate teacher attrition because it became a school where teachers wanted to teach. Teachers weren't afraid for their safety, for their health, and test scores went up by 75 points as well. So the school district got wind of these results, and as a result of some student organizing and the successes, the unparalleled successes of this pilot, the school district in 2010 passed a resolution adopting restorative justice as official school policy. Okay. So that's been the policy since 2010. Our work is not only about providing services and doing these circles and helping to bring healing in our youth's lives, but it's also about creating policy change, systems change, so that the benefits of this work will be felt by all youth in the school district. So the great thing is that the school district did not allow this resolution to collect dust, sit on the shelf and collect dust. Since then, the school district has a budget, has developed a budget of more than $2.3 million. There are 40 full-time restorative justice employees in the Oakland Unified School District. And these are great jobs. They're given full benefits. They are like high teacher salaries. And it should be that way because our coordinators not only facilitate circles in the restorative justice room, but they train teachers, they coach teachers about how to do circles in their classrooms. They train principals, they train vice principals about how to do these circles as an alternative for discipline. So it's very complex work, to be a restorative justice coordinator. And now, restorative justice is in more than 35 schools in the Oakland Unified School District.